All right, welcome everybody to our July, that's funny. I did it right here. It's our July 2021 meeting, but I named this file June 2021. um, welcome to the DFW Power BI users group, for everybody that can make it. Our agenda today we've been on for a few minutes, just kind of getting everybody connected. We'll go through a little bit of housekeeping things. Then I'm going to do a presentation. As I said, it's the first time doing it, so hopefully I have enough material to actually go through a whole hour. I think I do. And I'm going to record it and keep the recording so I can keep improving this. There's one other link I want to share with you. But the reason I'm working on getting this kind of polished up is there's a live conference that's going to happen down in Houston in October. And so I'm planning on giving this presentation there. I've submitted it. The thought is that I will be selected to do it because I know the people involved with the conference and everything. So if you're looking in October to start getting back to a live conferences and meeting people face to face, there's an opportunity for you. And later on, I'll find the link and share it out in the chat and everything. Then after my presentation, we'll go through and do what we do a lot in this group is we go through and take anybody's questions. We'll turn off the recording. If there's anything that you want to bring up, help with something, a problem that you're having at work or whatever, yeah, we'll go through any questions. And then I'll still be available if we want to stay on. What I've noticed a lot of other user groups doing is they stay on afterwards and do just a social kind of networking, talking about what things are going on in the market, just talking about anything. Some people will even just go and grab a drink and sit there. I've seen a lot doing videos or everybody turning their video on and stuff. So if we want to do that, I'll leave it open and we could do that at that point as well. You may be kind of sick of sitting on the line by then, but anyways. A couple links or a couple things to think about, right, for this users group. If you haven't been here before, hopefully everybody has. You should have found us probably through Meetup. That is our primary way of communicating with everybody. And then Microsoft is working on taking back over the Power BI users group. And so we have this link, and I'll copy all these links and put them in the chat here in a little bit, as well as one for Slack. Actually, let me get my chat going, and then I could start doing that now. So can I just do this? I think so. So obviously our Meetup space, if you haven't seen it before, that's that. Our Power BI users group. I don't have it as a link. I don't think that's going to copy the link. Let me see. If anybody knows how to easily copy the link out of here, what I'll do is actually do the control click, and stuff that I don't want to come up is going to come up.
So this is like, because I've been to these community.powerbi.com to ask questions. Mm-hmm. So is this a discussion thread that people in DFW subscribe to? So like there's the overall discussion thread where I'm thinking if I've already asked something in our Slack, like I want to broaden my net, you know, and try and get,
so what this is, it's a good question, and this I need to fix the logo on it. But what Microsoft is doing is dynamic communities had all of the Power BI user groups, and they've been struggling. They've had a bunch of leadership changes and everything. So Microsoft decided to take back over the user group. So what'll end up happening is our events will eventually start being listed here. We'll have our own discussion for this. Maybe we won't need Slack anymore, right? It could potentially take over Meetup, but a lot of user groups that I'm seeing, they're still using Meetup. This isn't being used a whole lot yet because Microsoft is requiring that we send in a form every time that we want to make a change, whether it's add a new event, or you can't do anything on your own yet. So it's going to take a little bit to take off, but once it does, my assumption it's going to replace what was on the old dynamic community. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. What is the name of the, is there a name for this share space? Do you know what I mean? Like the technology, it's just a web based
It's what
whatever.
Microsoft, yeah, whatever. I don't know what Microsoft stood it up on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's whatever they happen to use. And that may be part of what they're trying to change out. I don't know what they're using. They haven't really kind of released that. Slack, right? So we have a Slack channel. Let me go ahead and bring that up here, right? So we have a bunch of different, we have a Slack space and a bunch of different channels. I'm going to, that's not what I wanted to do, is add teammates, invite people, copy link, and over in the chat is now our link for our Slack group. So if you haven't joined Slack yet, please go ahead and join Slack and we communicate there. The other thing that I did over this last weekend, talking about not taking much time off, I created us a YouTube channel. The reason I did this is our Zoom account was running out of space. And so I needed to do something with a lot of the files. So I downloaded all the videos that I could find, including what Michelle put out on Slack, and put it over onto a YouTube channel. For our last modeling class, I produced a playlist that goes through it all. And so this will be where we start archiving our monthly meetings and our weekly sessions and everything. Everything we record will start going out to this YouTube channel. So I'm going to put this here, and if you would, please start subscribing and promoting it to the rest of DFW. And you could start going to that. All right. Any other housekeeping? Michelle, I don't know if there's anything you want to bring up in the housekeeping part of this.
No, I think you covered that. No, that's good.
Okay. So we'll roll into my presentation for DAX.do. So let me bring that down. Bring. And if you could, please mute yourself. I'll mute that person, but keep yourself on mute. If you do want to ask a question, feel free to come off mute or put the question in the chat. Now I have the chat up in another window. It looks the opposite way to me, but it's over on that monitor. So if you see me looking at that monitor, I also have my notes for this presentation over here, which I'll show you guys in here just a little bit. But let's talk about DAX.do. So this is going to be a session to introduce you to the DAX.do website that was produced by SQLBI. And it's a way for you to help learn DAX functions. So we'll go through all of that. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Kevin Arnold. I work at Expert Analytics. I'm a partner at Expert Analytics. We focus on a lot of data architecture, data analytics, everything from producing data warehouses to Power BI reports to we have a data scientist on staff. So, you know, we cover the gamut of everything. So if you have anything around the data analytics, data integration space that you want to talk to me about, feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn. This little picture of me has more of how people see me usually with my little icon on the top. All right, so DAX.do. You guys could all join me in this during this presentation and kind of make it interactive. And we would start by just going to the website to introduce it, which is simply DAX.do, DAX.do. And when you first go there, you're going to see this little top part pop up. And the SQLBI guys, Marco and Alberto, They have a video out here that you could expand out, and it's about a 15-minute video that is going to also introduce you to what DAX.do is, kind of how to work with it and everything. I'm going to do a lot of that, and I'm going to try to take it just a little bit deeper. So let's think about, why would you want to use DAX.do versus using Power BI or something to learn your DAX? So I would say that the first reason is this is basically a sandbox. It's a standalone sandbox that you just don't have to worry about all the other things around it. There's two data models, and we'll get deeper into each one of these. There's two data models, this Contoso and DAX Guide data models that you could explore and you could use to help yourself learn DAX. The models are put together in a professional manner because the SQLBI guys are extremely professional. They're very good at data modeling, and they really understand what's going on with everything. You don't have to have something or multiple things running on your desktop, right? So you don't have to worry about Power BI desktop running, what the model looks like. And if you're like me, sometimes you just kind of get distracted, right? You'll come in and you go, I want to learn this about DAX, but then you start getting distracted on how to put the visual together correctly or how to do something else on the data model. So the squirrel effect really kind of gets to me quite a bit. So this gives you a little bit of an isolated area. And the thing is you're going to actually write DAX queries. I think most of us work with DAX measures, but we don't think about DAX queries. But it's a good thing to learn about and a good thing to really understand. Probably the number one reason I think it's good to understand DAX queries is because of the when you're doing performance, right? If you ever opened up Power BI and you have a query and you want to do the view performance and it shows you the DAX queries, and then you copy and paste that. That's what I meant to open up too. Sorry. You pull that out and you get this wild looking query, and you got to be able to try to read through it. Right. So the more you understand the DAX query language, right, not just writing measures, but the queries themselves, the better off you're going to be able to read what's going on. And I'll pull up an example here in just a second. I'm going to probably do that off on another screen here while I'm talking. And I think I got to use I got to use one of my signed in browsers. So, by having that understanding, then you'll be able to do better at tuning your queries. So let me get this window pulled up. Sorry about that. Okay.
So Kevin, just to, if I can make sure I'm understanding what you're saying, this is very different from Tabular Editor because it's not intended to connect to your work and help you make your project better. Like you said, it's standalone. It has to be standalone. It can't connect to you.
Right, and that's a very good point. Yep, because I wanted to bring that out as well. It cannot connect to any of your models. These are the only two models that you could work with, and there's I'll introduce to you a little bit why, how that really helps you here as we work through it a little bit more. But yes, it's not an infrastructure to connect to your data. So, but that opens up one of the other main things you could do with it, which actually was next on my list, is once you've typed some DAX code and you really understand something, you could share this with others. And if you do anything like you're writing blogs or you're writing, you're teaching people inside your company or outside of your company, you want to have something that is not data that they can't see. It's all public data. So you could share this pretty easily. And I'll show that here in just a little bit. But back to kind of the Power BI generated queries. This is one that I wanted to show. If you look at this, right, this was taken off a very simple Power BI report. It was one visualization, right? And this is what the whole DAX query looks like for a model that I just happen to have. And you read through it and you kind of go to yourself, well, what are all of these things, you know, and why is it doing all of this stuff? And I'm going to kind of, I won't construct something exactly like this, but I'm going to construct something close to this to help us understand what Power BI is trying to do when it generates a query, so we could think about it in that way and we could kind of produce our queries a whole lot better. Another reason to learn DAX queries is if you're going to start getting into the newer feature of paginated reports that Power BI has now supports up on the service, you're probably going to write a DAX query to get the data from a data model. And so, you know, it has a way to generate the queries within there, but the more you know how to write your own queries, I think the better queries that you're going to be able to produce. All right, so let's kind of get started with going through and reviewing what's on this website. So I'm going to make this window a little bit larger for now. Okay. And just so that you know, if you really wanted to kind of geek out, this site, this web page can run on not just computer, right? You don't need the browser that's on your computer. You could run it off of your phone, your tablets, or whatever. Any browser, it will pretty much work in. I've had different experiences with it in each one, but that's okay. All right, so you have all of these panes within within your main presentation window. You have your toolbar up here, right? And I already collapsed it, right? You could expand this and get back to this video if you wanted to see it, or just see what their overall you know, statement is on DAX.do from the Power BI, the SQLBI guys. You'll notice here, these are resizable. And one of the reasons I went ahead and started mine in a private browser window is because this will save your settings, so that when you come in between sessions, right, each one of these panes you can make bigger and smaller. And we'll cover, when you'll see as I keep clicking through things, what comes up in each one of these panes. This is their little bit of advertisement over here. They do allow you to close it out. I'm going to close it out just to get a little bit more space there, right? But it's just them promoting their site. All right, so probably one of the first things that we really need to be able to do is understand the data model. That's going to be the first thing we need to do in order to, oh, my presentation here got really messed up. I got a set of notes that all of a sudden look weird. So the first thing here is these are the tables. And if we click on this table, you'll notice down here, all of a sudden this pane changed a little bit, right? And we have this expansion bar. So we could expand this up and it tells me more of what this is. Currency is a table. The DAX name is quote currency quote. It's got 28 rows in it, 3 columns, and it's considered a dimension. I could click right on the currency column. It tells me now that this is a column name. It gives me what the minimum and maximum values are. It tells me the number of distinct values and what its data type is. So with this, you could start getting more and more information so that you could understand what is in this model to work with. Okay, and it obviously has a date table and everything. You could come in also, there's this 3 dots, and you could select different options off of the context menu. Right now I'm going to show hidden measures, and you'll notice what showed up on currency is the currency key. So the currency key is hidden, but when you tell it you want to show the hidden items, currency key shows up, and you notice it has a little relationship that it has a relationship. And down here, it tells you what that relationship is. So it has a relationship to the sales table off of currency key is a many to one off a currency key on the currency table. So now you start really trying to understand what the data model looks like. But this could get a little tedious going through and looking at it time and time again. So another thing that they provide to you is a relationship diagram. And if you expand that relationship diagram, when you click on it, it's going to open it up in another window. So one of the recommendations is you could have this dragged out to either keep on another monitor or side by side, so you could see all of these relationships. And now you can see that they've put together for us a nice star schema and how everything looks within this star schema. And this one is obviously very simple. It's got customer, product, date, currency over to sales. So what about the other one, the DAX guide data model? So I could just switch that. I have a similar setup of date, product, customer. This introduces store, this introduces promotion, and then they have these disconnected tables as well. So they use this to come up with their DAX.guide. If you haven't heard me talk about DAX.guide before, it's better help pages than what Microsoft provides. Okay, and what you'll notice is that here, these two windows are connected. So anytime I switch data models, the other window it switches. And this is also going to keep if I move these things around, it's going to keep that information for you the next time you logged in. Okay, so let me see where I am on my notes. Did all of that. So let me just so now, get rid of this, get rid of this. So here, we're going to, let's say we want to see what's inside the currency table. So remember before we could click on that and we could say preview data. And you notice what it did is it put an evaluate command inside of our middle pane. The middle pane is where we enter our DAX query. And as soon as you did that, other things kind of all lit up, right? So there's more on the toolbar. We have undo, we have copy, paste, clear. We could put insert comments or turn comment off. Format, right? No good DAX, no DAX code is good DAX code until it's formatted correctly.
Only for healthy lifestyle.
So, so you could format and change what your lines are, and we could run it. Well, this, as soon as I added it, it ran it, and then here's all the data that's in this table down below, right? But the nice part of it is it really gives us our very first DAX query. It's a top-end query. Over here, we can see in our DAX.guide, if we don't know what top-end does, it's going to give us information about what top-end looks like. So here's its syntax. So you're going to give it a value, in this case 10 for the number of rows you want returned, the table. And then you could give an order by expression and the order, and then you could continue to repeat it. The other thing that they do quite a here is all of the articles that SQLBI wrote are linked over here, and as well as DAX.guide itself. So we're going to click on that, which is going to take us to another page. And this is, a lot more information about what DAX.guide is. On this private window, I'm not allowing cookies. It's just the default of a private. If you do have cookies or you're in a non-private setting, you'll get a video. They'll have videos on all of their, about how to teach all of their functions here. So it's a very good way to come in and learn more about what these functions are doing. So then, as you come down, what you'll notice is they give examples. Then out of these examples, they have a little try it. Remember I mentioned a little while ago that you could share queries from DAX.do. Well, this is exactly what the share looks like. So you could come in here and you could copy this, or you could hit try it. I'm going to go ahead and hit try it. And you see it opened up a new window for me, and it put that exact query in here and then ran it. And I'm going to shrink this down. You see it kept what my size was, right? So off of this query, so now all of a sudden we have some more DAX, a bigger DAX query that we're kind of working with. So we could look at this and go, well, it got us the top 3 rows. And it's using the add columns. So if we wanted to find out more about add columns, we could look at it here, right? But add columns basically takes in a table as the first parameter, and then it adds the columns that you provide to it afterwards. So this is taking in the values from product name, and adding sales amount to it. And then it's getting the top 3 based upon the sales amount inside that table that was done by add columns. It's going to sort it ascending, and then it's going to do an order by of sales amount descending. So you see you got your top 3 with your highest amount down to your lowest amount. So there's one of your very first DAX queries. Pretty simple, right, to kind of go through. And now we kind of understand a little bit more what's happening in part of our queries that Power BI is generating for us, right? If you remember that query, if I go and find that window again, bring this over, working with multiple monitors is fun. You'll notice the last part of the query generated by Power BI, it's doing it in a variable, right? And it's naming it primary window, DS0 primary window, and then it's doing this evaluate primary window. So if we kind of work backwards from what Power BI is doing, it's simply just doing a top N 1001 from these earlier queries, right? We'll get into kind of a little bit more of how these could be built, but and it's going to do it. Let's see. These are going to be, let's break this down a little bit more, because it's saying for top N, let's add columns. Let's go to click on top N. And so those are order by expressions and the order, right, that's happening there. So the top N that we're seeing over in this other window is it's going to order it by these 2 things, the calendar number 1 and then the calendar month and 1. I believe 1 is just is descending. It's just the normal. Let's see what it says here. Is ascending.
So Kevin, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So it says that the order by is an expression. So here, equivalently, they could have done an expression that concatenates the month number, whatever those 2 things are. What is it? The month number and then the month. The one in the top end of 1001. It's like top end, and then the first sort is month number, and the second sort is like the month that I'm not.
You probably could get away with that, right? And we could try that here in just a little bit, right? But my guess is it wouldn't perform very well, right? But we could try that. We'll get into writing our own here in just a little bit, and then so keep that in mind, and let's try to write something like that and see what happens, sure. Right? So now let's say that we're coming in and we're going, okay, this is kind of close to something that I need, but I don't want the top 3 in descending order. I'm going to want it in ascending order, right? So I'm going to change this here, and I'm going to change this here, all right? Because again, we're trying to learn, so we could experiment in this sandbox and just do whatever we want. So let's run that, and let's see what we got. Well, all of a sudden, we got a whole lot more than 3. So what happened? Kind of interesting, isn't it?
I like that. That's great.
So what's going on here, right, is you can get ties in this because of the blanks, right? Or because of the values in there. So you can sometimes get more items. So what would be a way for us to fix this, right? Is let's say that I want to, you know, not worry about any of the ones that are blank. So I want to get rid of these rows in here. Well, I could try to learn my next function, and where a lot of people start is on filter. So I could just type filter, and I get some autocomplete on here, right? And it tells me some more when I do my filter function, whatever function I put in, what is it that I need to have? Well, the next thing I need is my table. Okay, well, I'm going to make, this is going to be my table right through here. And then I need a filter expression. Actually, it's my table is all through, let's see, that's add columns. Yeah, it's all of this. Okay, so now I need a filter expression, and I'm going to say not, which again, I could just prompt it up, is blank. And I'm going to put in my measure from this table, which is named at sales amount. Close out, have my comma. And I think this is good. Again, how can I tell? Well, using format, no, I missed something somewhere, right? Because format has some type of syntax error. So now comes the fun part of trying to figure out where that all is.
Your filter parentheses not closed?
You're right. Good job. Still something off. I thought I saved this, so I have to look to see. Oh, I did. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go. Because I did this earlier. Hop in. Amount is incorrect. Oh, you know, I wonder if.
Oh, because of the @ sign? You think the.
No, I think I need to put this in brackets.
Yeah. I was going to ask, did they have line numbers on the left? Did the error message, it didn't give a line number?
A lot of the error message is a little tough on that, right? But anyways, once we got that figured out, right? So again, sometimes making mistakes helps you learn, which again, you're doing that. Let me try to answer your question by going back and getting that error message, right? So I did the run, and doing the run, it gave me the error message. But it doesn't really tell me a line number. It doesn't tell me explicitly where it's at. So I don't think it's as verbose. Query was 12 and 32. Yeah, I don't know that this 12 equates out to this line 12.
It could be. And then character position 32?
Maybe.
Column.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway, so now we added another filter to this, and we got more of the results that we want, right? So we have now, instead of 200 and some, we're down to our top 3 again. It's our bottom 3, right? Because we're sorting, instead of descending, we're sorting ascending, and we're getting the 3. We're now along, and we're excluding the blanks. hey, we're already learning. Look at that. So now let's say that we want to give this as an example to somebody. So we could come right here to share. And it's saying that this has, you have edited a snippet of code. Yeah, well, because it started from the, how we did the try it from the DAX or the DAX guide page. So we're going to duplicate this and share so we have our own copy of it. And what it gives to you is gives you a public link, which I'm going to take that right now and I'm going to put it into our chat. And so in case you guys are trying this yourselves, right? You could go grab that link and you'll be able to get this DAX query that I just put together. The other link you keep for yourself, because if you ever want to come back in and edit it, you can make changes. And so it tells you not to share this, but if you found that you wanted to change something on it, even the comments or whatever, and then resave it, right? So like I could come here and hang on a second.
Kevin, when you did
Yeah.
when you added filter, like first you wrote it without filter and then you wrote it with filter, it doesn't, I'm trailing you a bit here. It doesn't have to have filter in it, right? Because when you did it without filter, you got more lines than you expected, right?
Right, because blanks were included.
Okay.
Right. So what we wanted to do, because we were trying to write a query that we could get the top three sorted in ascending sequence. And when we got it that way, remember we got 200 and some odd rows because of the blanks. So this was just trying to show how we could use another function called filter in order to get a better result from that.
I was just going to say it is sort of a semantic ambiguity in the data because you don't know if they're blank because you've got inventory that just won't get off the shelf, or it's just products that you haven't created inventory yet. So that's kind of unfortunate if this was a query you had to actually produce.
Well, you might have to, depending on your data, right? And it depends on what you're trying to turn back. This is not a measure that you're going to produce. A lot of times when we think about DAX and we work with DAX as measures, and what's happening behind the scenes is Power BI is generating that query for you, and it's doing more of these things, right? So this is trying to come up and think of ways that you could understand how to generate the way the query engine works rather than thinking just in measures.
Okay.
Okay. But it's also showing some of the functionality of how this works. So now you noticed, I modified this, and if you guys already got that code, when I hit save, if you get that link that I put out in chat, you would end up getting my new comment on this now. So yeah, I mean, the exercise of using filter was not just to kind of to teach maybe a right way. It was an exercise to try to show, right, what we could do to change things, to save things, and to share it based upon what we got somewhere else. But if I wanted to really kind of come in and think about what Power BI is generating for me, because again, remember we were going back to, this is an example query that came from Power BI. And if we look back further, so we saw that it uses a top N, and it's using that just to do some type of windowing, right? And it gives us this hint here by calling it a window. But the real work that it's doing is in this core. And so, let's figure out what this is using. It's called, summarize columns. And it's getting the column month, it's getting the column month number. It's got some filter table, and then it's getting, in this case, it gets total unit price. So we'll probably pick a different measure. And if we break this up, well, let's first start writing this part of it so we could kind of break it all down, okay? So we'll come over here, and a query always starts with evaluate. And so we're going to first do evaluate, summarize columns, which is what they had. And now look, we get our information, and we could click on it so that we get it over here in this bigger window, make this bigger so we could see it. And so we need our first group by column. Well, let's pick, we'll come in here and we'll say month. And looking back over here, they had month and month number for whatever reason. So we'll put our comma in, and it tells us now that we're either could repeat or put a filter table in. Well, let's put in our month number. Okay. And a filter table is optional, so we're going to skip that. And now let's put in at total sales. So we give it a name. And then we'll give it the measure that we want, which I believe that's going to be on the sales table. And you notice there's also little icons over here that tells you what things are measures. So we close that out. We hit format. It formats nicely. So we'll look at this. We'll run it. And we see down at the bottom, we get 12 rows, and it's a pretty big number in every one of them. So what's kind of missing from this, right, is the filtering. This was filtering to say we want to have 2018 as the year using the treat as function. And it's using it as a variable. So we come over here, we do define just like it had, variable, and we'll call it year filter. And this is one thing I noticed is because the word filter here, it highlights it, but it's part of the variable. So we're going to do treat as, and if we don't know what treat as looks like, again, it gives us our nice little pop-up. Well, let's read a little bit more on what it is in the guide. So treat the table that you're given to it as the column. So what we're going to be able to do is say treat as, if you remember, square brackets is a way to define an inline table. So we could say, I think this is, if we don't know what the values look like, right? We could come over here and say calendar year, expand it, and you'll notice the data looks like CY 2015 to CY 2011. So let's pick here and give it text, CY 2011.
You said square brackets. These are curly brackets.
Curly brackets. I said that wrong. Yes. Yep.
So squares exclusively for column headers, or is it also rows?
Yeah, columns and measures, right? Usually are by squares. The curly bracket indicates a table.
Okay, and if you wanted like
A
two
set.
rows, if you wanted CY 2010 and 2011,
Yeah.
what's the syntax to?
So I would
You
just
can finish
do,
what you're doing. I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. Just like that, because everything between the curly brackets, these are values within it. So it turns these two individual values into a table, a single row table.
Okay, so it's one row with two columns.
No, I'm sorry, a single column table with two rows.
Okay, so it blows them out into. Okay.
Yeah. So here we'll cover why in just a second, right? So I'm going to say to treat that as the calendar year.
Do you need to put a space there in the 2010, like in 2011?
Yes. Thank you. Okay. And so what we're going to do is, remember, if we go back to summarize columns, what this is asking for is a filter table. So it wants a table that it's going to go in right after my group by column names that are repeatable. And so this treats these two values as the values for this table. So it gives it the lineage for that table. Is that, oops, forgot a comma here. So now when we run this, if you notice what these values are here, all pretty high. We're going to run it again. What did it do? It didn't. What did I do here?
Does it matter which grouping by thing you put the filter table after? I'm a little confused that there's two columns we're grouping by, and then we only give one of them a filter table. Because
No,
each of
it's just you could put as many filter tables as you want.
Okay.
Right? See, because it says it's optional.
Oh, it follows them.
And
Okay.
it's repeatable.
Okay, I see. So you repeat
So
as
your
many
first,
group bys,
right?
and then you repeat as many filter tables. I got it. Okay.
Yep. But let's take this out. And so I'm getting nothing. So if I want to think about how to debug this, I run this. Go back, date, calendar year. So just to help myself out, let's take this out again. And what I'm going to do, because this is part of trying to learn the data, I'm going to put my calendar year in here, put a comma, run it. Oh, and there's no data. Even though there's values for that, it was coming back correct because there was no data for those 2 years that we picked.
That's just bad luck.
It was bad luck, wasn't it? You think I should script this out better next time?
Yeah, do not play Russian roulette. I mean, there's only 2 years that don't have data. We pick them.
So now we'll do this again. And now we should only see CY 2009. And if we want to see multiple, so now we got 2008 and 2009. But we have it kind of wonky, don't we? Right? So what's the other thing that goes in here? Oh, well, we could put an order by on the results. So I'm going to go ahead and take calendar year out. And I'm going to put my order by. And I could order it by these two in this order, but I think it's going to sort incorrectly. So the reason that it's bringing this back is because this is defined in the model as the sort by column. So that's really what we want to sort it by. So let's run that. And you see we get everything sorted correctly. If I said just by month, right? Do you ever get this in your results where you get all the A's and then September's last, right? That's the reason why, or you didn't sign. When you assign your sort by column, this is what it's doing in your query behind the scenes. And so that's how that works.
Is order by like a part of the argument to evaluate? What? How
Yeah, it's part of this evaluate.
Okay.
It's the end of that.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's none of that if we look back on summarized columns. then try to come over here, right? There's no order by on that. But you see how this could help you learn DAX, right? Because again, it's, you know, a very small sample, right? Or it's a small area for you to goof around in. There we go. I had something up on my other screen. All right, so we could try to pick another one, right? We kind of went through top end, we went through summarized columns. I'm going to start with,
Kevin,
yeah.
can you show again, was there the option to like save this? I know there was an option to share it and then you can grab your link.
Yep.
I got that, but am I also supposed to like save this?
Yeah, so again, to save it, you're going to have to first do share.
Okay.
And then it's going to come back and give you this prompt, and you say save and share, and then you'll get your two links again. So you'll get your public link and your private link. And the private one is one that you could keep editing and save over and over again, where the public is anybody that sees it, they're just going to get the read-only copy of it.
Okay.
Yep. So I'll go ahead and share this out in the chat as well. And sorry, Michelle, oops, I don't think I'd had Michelle independently there. All right. So I'm going to take a little bit of a pause there because I was kind of, this kind of blends between learning this tool and learning a little bit of DAX, right? And what I feel is that, right, even though I go to DAX.guide and I click try it, and then I change things a little bit, I feel I learn more from it. So that's one of the things that I really like about this. You know, because otherwise I think I lost the one that I was just doing. That's all right, I'll get that back. Wonder where my other window went to. Huh. We'll get this here in a second, right? So to me, I learn by changing something. I guess it was this, because this is what we put our order by on. I change something or add something to it to try to build myself to learn my skills, right? So now if we go back to, you know, this is what we got out of Power BI. We've built all of this now. So now if I come up to the Power BI, you know, performance viewer, and I grab a query and I look at the query, it might be using different variable names than I used, but I have an understanding of what this is doing. This was probably a slicer, right? Or a filter or something that was on my report, and it was selected only have 2018. I had something on my report, could have been any visualization, that was visualizing by calendar month the total unit price, and it named total unit price. It named it total unit price, and it was coming off of whatever was on my, whatever was in my model named sales order lines, and hopefully this was a measure. That is one thing that it's recommended that you write things with measures. You don't put the table name in front of it, but Power BI will generate the table name in front of everything. So, but this was probably a measure inside my report. Well, I understand now what this is doing because it's filtering, because it's using the filter from the variable. And then it's just selecting if there's more than 1001, it's going to get the top 1001, and it's going to sort them in this order. And then it's just going to return this primary window, and it's going to give me my order by. It's everything that we just built on a little other model to help us learn it some more. So another one that I like, let's see if I can get this link. Okay. So this is what I ended up building out. And I'm going to go ahead and try to start this from scratch again. And what it's going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about DAX context transition, right? So one of the things that this has in it is we defined our own internal measure. So you could create a measure inside your DAX query, and it's going to be a sum, right? You just say you want to measure, you have to give it a table name, and then this is your own unique name. And let me put in the chat if you guys want this code where I'm starting from. So this is how you build your own measures. So pretty easy, right? We've worked with some before. And now this is going to use, it's going to build a table off of the color groups table. And we're going to show how this works differently within the add columns, whether it's the calculation is in line, right? So you notice this looks exactly like what my measure looks like, whether I'm using the measure or if I put calculate in front of it. And if we look at our results down below, that's not what I was expecting. Hang on. What was I trying to show? Oh, sorry, I'm on result set 2. I have 2 queries in there. This is another thing you could do is evaluate, and then you see I have another evaluate. So if I use the function here called add columns, and I bring up my color groups, and I do these 3 calculations, notice inline sales gets me the same value all the way down. So there's no transition of the row to the filter context. So this is just running, it's running the exact same code every single time and giving the same value. So if you're using, in these functions, you have to read them a little bit and get and understand what is going to do row transition, row to filter context transition, and what isn't. This is not, because this is giving the same value, but using my measure, it does. Because this implicitly puts a calculate in front of this, even though it's not in my measure. When it's used inside the part of the query, this calculate is implicitly put in front of it. And you'll notice if I just put the same expression and I put calculate in front of it, it gives me this same value. So this is a good example to show what happens in row to filter context transition. But if we look at our second evaluate, what you'll notice is using summarize columns is we get the exact same data, right? We got the first 2 columns are exactly the same, but we get the right value every single time, regardless how we write our code. And this is just because of how summarize column works, where it performs the row to filter transition. So this is something, you know, right, that I think a lot of people kind of struggle with, and sometimes things are taken care of for you, sometimes in the query that Power BI generates, but then you go to do a calculate column and it doesn't do what you think it's going to do. And this could be a reason why, right? I didn't try to grab what it does, but I think calculate column is just going to do this add columns part. and it's going to then calculate out these columns. And unless you put the calculate in front of your inline expression, the transition's not going to happen. And so you get one value all the way down. So if you ever had that inside your model, now you could see why, and you could see exactly what's happening inside your DAX query. I'll kind of pause there. Did I lose everybody on that, or?
Well, Kevin,
I could hardly hear you, Alman.
sorry. It's hard to trying to make sense out of this. Is it just, I don't want to say arbitrary, but or idiosyncratic, but like that the definition of summarized columns does this, and then the definition of add columns does not. That's what is it just sort of, it's stipulated in the definition of it that one works one way, one works the other way, or is there is there a real reason? Is there a fundamental reason?
I can't go into the reasons. I don't know why, right? But yes, there's fundamental reasons why they do it, right? There's different, right? The reason multiple functions exist is they exist to do things differently. And so that's why it is important to go out here and go through the documentation, especially all the articles and everything that that these guys write for us, right? And to read through them and to get an understanding of what's happening, right? Because you can't just assume that add columns and summarize columns are going to work the same. So you really do need to learn which is the better functions to use in the right situation. And going through using a tool like DAX.do and the DAX guide that they put out there will help you learn those different things and to see this. And show your friends by sharing, because sharing is caring.
Thank you.
I wish I could answer sometimes why they do things or why things, but I really can't. Except, that it has to be for a reason, right? So.
Well, and it just helps to try and like push it into your brain if it fits into like a larger framework of there's functions that exist to accomplish certain kinds of things, and they all behave a certain way, and otherwise it's very difficult to well, for me it's going to be difficult to remember this kind of thing.
Right, which is why I think it's good to have a playground, right? To play, or that's outside of your data, that you could say, well, what is the difference between these two functions, right? And this shows a very good difference between them right here on this type of query. And having a place to come in, produce that, and see it.
It seems like the kind of thing they should put on a certification exam.
I would not imagine what a DAX certification exam would look like. And in my mind, there would only be a couple people that would pass that. And it's the guys that are at SQLBI.
That's funny.
So that's really all I had prepared. Looking at this, we didn't go quite an hour because I had all the other intro. It's 7 minutes after. I'm going to pause for any other questions or anything that you guys think I could kind of show you here to kind of get you going and get you, on your own path for learning these DAX functions in this playground. Would you use this? Would you not use it? Is it,
I'll use
what do you
it for
think?
sure. This is great because, like you said at the beginning, it's nice to know that at least the model is set up right and that I didn't bungle something that won't talk to something else, which happens a lot.
Okay, well, I mean, if there's no more questions,
I'm just gonna.
Go ahead.
I'll put it out there. When you started, I went into the thing and I just did evaluate count rows on a table, and it gave me a syntax error that I still haven't figured out. And I thought that's got to be like the easiest thing to do. I just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was just
Okay.
evaluate count.
So and what table did you give to it?
Well, I was in the Contoso and I just did currency. Oh, is currency not a table?
So this?
Yeah. Okay, it's gonna work, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's
I
gonna
mean,
work.
like, what could?
I did format. It formats nicely. Run.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah, that's what I. Okay, at least I'm glad that it's repeatable.
That's true. So let's go here. Did you go to?
No, no.
Next
No, I was
guy.
paying attention to your presentation. I couldn't spend any more time.
So, I mean, they show it right here, just giving a table.
And literally, I only picked it because I thought that's got to be the easiest thing for me to just try something.
Values, I think. So let's see if I give it a column rather than. Oh, I know what it is. Okay. Yeah, this is that's actually, let's go all the way back to this. The reason that it didn't work is this function. Let's go back to our help. I should have seen this right away. The return is a scalar value. So it's a single integer. The DAX query, the evaluate, expects a row.
Oh.
So you have to wrap it in
row
those
it.
curly brackets as
Oh
a
my
way
God.
around that. And it will turn that single value into a row with one column. And then that comes back.
Wow, thank you. Oh my gosh. Whew. Let me ask you about something
That might
else.
be a good one to add to the presentation too, to show to people.
Well, the other thing is at the beginning you talked about, there's queries and there's measures.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could sort of explicitly tie them together, like I thought that a measure is just a name equals a query. But is it not that? Is it something else?
Well, but a measure must return a single value.
Oh, queries.
To where a query returns rows.
So like we just saw. So a
Right.
measure intends to have a scalar result. And then okay.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that's the biggest difference, right? And then the measure is going to perform in the context that is within the query. So if we go back to here, right, where we did a filtering, right? There's context being provided across this whole thing, which is easier to see with that Oops. It's easier to see with this because we have the treat as. Actually, I didn't want that to come up there, but that's okay. Right? So because we have this filter here, when we use this filter in this summarized columns, that's part of the context of the overall query. So this measure, each one of these, right, if we get a row that comes back out, that row is given to the context filter for sales amount. So it's only producing the total sales for this row, this row, because this got changed. This is a measure and got a calculate put in front of it to do the context transition. So it's all that's kind of the difference between a measure and a query. Okay.
I'll ask another question.
Sure.
If nobody minds, because we're on this screen. So because at sales amount was defined to be sales amount, we could equivalently use that in lines 13 and 15, and it would work. I mean, I think I tested on one of them. It works the same. Is it a clarity or performance difference? Or, I mean, it should work. Am I misunderstanding that it's equivalent?
So now you're saying this would be, I don't think it's going to work there. I guess it does.
I mean, that's telling it. So sales amount was in a different table it's related to, I guess. I didn't look at the map.
Well, sales amount's the measure.
Oh, it's a measure. Okay.
But this could be keeping, there are certain things that there are certain functions or certain things within the table that maintains lineage. But if lineage is broken, then it's not going to know how to do that.
So it doesn't try and, I actually thought it was pulling it in via a relationship. So it's not, that's not what it's doing.
No, it's calculating this for every row that's here.
Okay.
But there could be lineage on why, I don't know off the top of my head why that worked. At first, I would have thought that it wouldn't have worked correctly. But there has to be some lineage that it's keeping, because once you do this, you're adding this column to this product table, and that table is then going to be filtered, and then it's going to be passed to the top N. So maybe the lineage did keep, but this is a better way of writing it, because this is the column that you added to this particular table in this statement.
And honestly, before tonight, I don't remember us talking about lineage in DAX. Like, I've only seen lineage in the, in the service with the lineage view, but this, I didn't realize that's a thing inside your DAX code.
Yes, so that when you're creating tables, like you do a calculate table, or you produce a filter table of grabbing certain things, it will keep the lineage, and then it knows how to apply all the, what table that is and what relationships it goes to and things like that.
Oh, it's just like an expression tree to recalculate everything if it has to, right? I mean, that's what.
Well, but it's also like, if I want to filter the date table, right? If you remember, if I could go back and find the one that we had before. I think it's this one. Right? So this is a table that treat as is assigning these two values to be the lineage for the date table year, the calendar year column on the date table. So it's assigning lineage. I could get the same type of filter where if I wanted to comment that out, and I wanted to call it var_year. filter again equals, I think filter keeps the lineage. So I'm going to filter date, where I was hoping it would just have like year on here somewhere.
Calendar year was at the top.
Yeah, I know, but then I got to use the string again.
Oh,
I was trying to use it so,
the number.
but I'll just do 1. That didn't work too well. Equals CY2009. I think that looks right. Let me format it. Format's all right. So now what this is going to do is, instead of me having a table that is just one column, just the year, with lineage to the date table, I'm going to have a table that is the entire date table filtered down to this. I'm going to get the same result, but it's a little bit different. You keep dropping out.
I'm sorry. Well, sometimes I just don't finish a sentence, like for real.
But let me go ahead and run this and make
Okay.
sure it's all going to work, right? We should see the same, the similar results. These numbers will be lower because it'll only be 1 year, right? But effectively, it's doing the same thing. This is keeping the lineage because it knows that this variable is has lineage to date. So that's why it's producing that in the filter.
Is the advantage of TreeDAS that it's just faster? Like, what is the advantage of, or is it in certain situations you don't want to keep? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, what you want to do is set your filtering to be the minimum number of columns as possible. So instead of the entire table, just a particular column, right? That's better filtering. It's easier to type in and to use TreeDAS. You'll see TreeDAS a lot in the code that Power BI generates. That's why I ended up picking it that way.
Okay.
All good questions. Amin's going to have to be the one to come to all of my presentations to get me a whole bunch of questions.
I'm going to Houston this weekend, but I don't know about October.
That's right. I'll have you come in virtually. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and kind of wrap it up. Unless there's any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Stop the share. I'm going to stop the recording.